Hey guys, if you're searching for a story dull enough to lull you to sleep, yet strange enough to slip into your dreams, you've stumbled into the right place. This isn't a tale of heroes or magic. Number, just ropes, wooden wheels, and people, like you, caught in a time when history didn't bother capitalizing hope. Each part of this story is a slice, not of history, but of the raw feeling that ordinary folks carried on their skin, in their bones, and deep in their chests. If you're still awake after this and you want to wander through more of these slow, heavy chapters, don't hesitate to hit subscribe and tap that little bell. It's a small reminder that sometimes you deserve a sleep. Cruel, but peaceful. Now, close your eyes gently. Picture a woolen curtain before you, faded by time, carrying the faint scent of hearth smoke and sheep's fleece. As you lift it and step through, the first chapter begins. You wake not because of some fright, but because your back aches like the last straw beneath you has finally rebelled. That tiny act of defiance is enough to drag you from a half-baked dream back to a reality of cold stone, wood smoke, and the whining wind slipping through a warped wooden door like a hungry cat. You lie there in a posture that's neither rest nor hiding. A blanket, barely an inch thick, woven from old wool and despair, is pulled up to your chin. It itches, but you let it. Sometimes that itch is the only thing reminding you you're still breathing. Outside, night has smothered everything. No street lamps, no stars. The only light is a frail flicker from the stone hearth, wavering like a storyteller too shy to speak. It's not enough to warm the room, but just enough to stretch your shadow across the wall, long, distorted, twitching as if it's trying to confess something you'd rather forget. You hear yourself swallow. It's wet, slow, slightly salty, not from emotion, but because you haven't tasted clean water since the day before yesterday. Your breath escapes, dissolving into the air. The cold feels like the room is passing through you, seeping into the cracks of your fingers and toes, as if it's checking whether you've frozen solid yet. But you're used to it. The cold doesn't kill you, it just slows you down. Slows you until you start to remember. You remember a time before these flickering fires, when light was a privilege and truth was measured by where you sat in church. When stories didn't begin with once upon a time, but with may God forgive. Even when no one had sinned yet. You sigh. Not a tired sigh, but a leftover one, like the hum of a slackened lute string, still vibrating long after the player has left. You listen to the wind. It's not really wind. It's more like the whisper of things you no longer dare say aloud. Hunger, cold, fear, and helplessness. On the ceiling, a spiderweb sways with the rhythm of the heavy air. You watch it and wonder, does that spider know it's living in a blood-soaked century? Then you think, maybe it's luckier than me. No one hangs a spider for heresy. You laugh, a short, dry, hollow sound. It echoes briefly, then vanishes, as if afraid to disturb the room. This room knows how to keep quiet. Silence is the only thing you still own in full. The fire's edge turns green, a sign the wood is damp. The acrid smoke from last night, when you burned someone else's confession ledger to stay warm, still clings to your hair. Not out of rebellion. You just needed heat more than you needed absolution. You turn your face to the wall, where the stone is so damp and mouldy that if you pressed your ear to it, you might hear the centuries breathing. Or maybe it's the groans of whoever was locked in here before you. Or maybe it's your imagination. You can't tell anymore what's real, what's memory. Everything smells old. You blink. Your eyelids stick together, not from sleepiness, but from the smoky dust. And so you let your mind drift, not to sleep, but to remember. You remember a world where light was never enough, and the law never loosened its grip. You once saw a child whipped for stepping on a priest's shadow. Not on purpose, just a shadow stretched too long on a cloudy day, and the boy's feet didn't notice. The crack of the lash sounded like dry wood snapping. But what stuck with you wasn't the sound. It was how the boy stayed silent. No crying, no screaming, just gritted teeth and a stare into nothingness, as if he was trying to escape the world through his own eyes. You know that feeling. You do it every night, because living in this time isn't living. It's staying quiet for so long that someone else speaks first, or dies first. You close your eyes, not to sleep, to blur the world. Sometimes, staring into the dark is the only way to know you're still here. You hear your heartbeat. Slow. So slow. As if it's not sure whether to keep going. The fire still burns. The wind still howls. And you're still there. Caught in the night, when the world forgot what real light was. And then, not with your ears, but with something deeper, you sense it. A faint, invisible footstep, coming from a place darker than the room's shadows. The sound of something more sinister than night. Because beyond the firelight lies justice. And justice, as you're about to recall, doesn't need proof. It only needs an accusation. You know you're innocent. Of course you are. Who isn't? You just forgot that in this age, innocence doesn't mean you're safe. It only means your name hasn't been called yet. Once it is, whether you did anything or not stops mattering. What matters is who called you. Unfortunately, the one pointing the finger this time is the blacksmith's wife, who just lost her only laying hen. She swears she saw its feathers stuck to your trouser leg. You explain you passed through the market that day. Feathers could have caught there. They ask why you didn't wash your clothes. You answer honestly, you didn't have enough clean water. That's when they nod, the kind of nod that says they've just solved a holy riddle, and you realize your life is about to turn a page, imprisoned for the sake of justice. The cell isn't big, just enough room to sit without stretching your legs, lie down if you tilt sideways, or, if you're careless enough to reach out, touch the slimy cold stone walls that feel like the back of an ancient toad. No mattress, no straw. But you do have a cellmate, an unnamed old man whose breath smells of raw onions and whose eyes never blink. He doesn't speak. He just stares as if calculating how many rounds of questioning you're worth. You try counting the days, but the cell has no light, only a thin grey slit where dimness sneaks in at unpredictable hours. You mark time with scratches on the wall. After 6, you stop. Not because you're bored, because you notice a smear of dried blood where your hand rested, and it's still wet. When the day of your trial comes, or what you assume is a trial, you're led out. The ropes around your wrists bite like they have a personal grudge. Each step makes your ankles creak, stiffened from days of stillness. The courtroom sits in the village centre, right beside the bakery, where the smell of fresh bread mingles with the scent of justice. You step onto a wooden platform, barely raised above the ground, but high enough to make you feel like a lone stake in a winter field. Before you stands the judge, a plump priest with a bald head, clutching a cross in one hand and a mug of ginger beer in the other. To your left, the accuser. To your right, the village chief. No one looks at you. They flip pages, stroke beards, and sniff loudly, gestures repeated like an ancient ritual no one remembers the point of. The first question, do you believe in God? You say yes. They ask, which God? You say, the only one. They ask, what's his name? You hesitate. They nod. Then they ask about the chicken. You say you don't know. They ask if you eat eggs. You admit you did, last week. They ask, how do you know those weren't her eggs? You don't answer. They nod again, the nod of men who've just heard a whisper from the divine. You don't understand why they don't need evidence. Then you remember you once saw a woman branded a witch because she had a perfectly round mole on her cheek. She shaved it off. They said, hey, that's exactly why we were right. You figure you're luckier you don't have a mole, just a pair of old trousers with chicken feathers. And so you lose. After a trial that lasts 3 Bible passages and 1 judge's nap, you're sentenced to further detention until grounds for mercy arise. You don't know what mercy means here. You guess it involves your family bringing chickens or coins to buy you back. You have neither chickens nor family. So you're dragged back to the cell where the onion-breathed man still stares at the wall as if he's found truth in the mold. You sit, your ankles crumbling, your throat dry, your mind empty. Not pained, not sad, just hollow like a water jug cracked days ago. You think about justice. It doesn't come, doesn't go, doesn't exist. There are only people talking about it, endlessly, as if saying its name enough times will make you less thirsty. But you're still parched and cold, so cold. Outside it's still dark. Or maybe it's light. You can't tell anymore. In this place, light doesn't guide. It only shows the faces of those waiting to see how you'll be shamed next. You don't know what's coming, but a faint, fragile feeling, like the growl of your stomach in the night, tells you you're headed for the square, where no one rests. They only watch. You used to think the village square was for singing, swapping onions, or chasing the brewer's scrawny dog. Then you learned it's not a place for rest, it's a stage. And today, you're the lead. No costume, no lines, no choice to decline the role. They march you to the square at dusk, the perfect hour when light slants through your bound fingers and the chatter of roosting birds is drowned by the giggles of children dragged by their parents to watch the wicked get taught. They call you wicked, even though you only crouched near a hen coop, even though you own no chickens, even though the only creature you ever harmed was a tick you squashed at age 8. Stocks and pillories, the village's favourite toys, they don't kill. They just hold you in the most uncomfortable pose possible for long enough that others have time to gather tomatoes, eggs, or the occasional dead snake. Stocks trap your feet. You sit, legs locked between wooden planks. You can't move, but at least you can look down. The pillory is crueler. It forces you to stand, your neck and wrists threaded through 3 holes, your head held rigid, unable to turn. You learn what a stiff neck truly means. Each gust of wind a reminder. You can't bow your head. They choose the pillory for you, or rather, they choose it for you. The wood is cold, cold like the carpenter's intent when he carved it. You stand, your neck pressed against the hard edge, your hands dangling before the crowd as if begging for something, but you don't beg. You know what they'll throw isn't mercy. The first smell is rotten tomatoes, sour, faintly fermented. Not unpleasant unless one hits your nose. Its stings makes your eyes water, half from pain, half from the shame pickled since last week. Next come the eggs, raw, cracked, older than your faith in justice. One bursts on your scalp, oozing down your ear, like a neighbour's gossip, thick, slow, unwashable. You hear laughter, not loud, but steady, and worst of all, familiar. There's the man you once shared an onion with, the child you taught to tie a shoe. They're there, watching you as if the wooden frame has turned you into someone else, something not worth remembering. You stand for hours, you don't know how many. Long enough for a drizzle to start, the water seeping through your collar, trickling down your spine like a warning that even the sky isn't on your side. Your legs go numb, your neck locks. But the worst part, you can't scratch. The itch starts somewhere. Maybe the eggs, maybe a mosquito, maybe your nerves betraying you. It spreads from your neck to your shoulders, chest, scalp, and all you can do is grimace. No one scratches for you during a public shaming. You wonder what you've learned. That justice is a game only the rule makers win. That a dirty trouser leg can kill your dignity faster than a blade. Number, you learn something else. If you stand in a pillory long enough, you'll know every vegetable in the village, not by sight but by taste. And you'll know the smell of silence, not the kind silence. The silence of those who watch you suffer, then turn away, as if that keeps their hands clean. You learn that humiliation doesn't need blood, just eyes. When they release you, your neck feels broken in two. Your hands are so numb, you can't tell they're free. You don't walk right away, you just sit on the muddy ground, your back against the bell post, the only thing that stayed quiet the whole time. Someone tosses you a crust of bread, hard as stone. You don't speak. Not out of gratitude, your lips are cracked. And sometimes, silence is the thanks no one expects. You don't sleep that night. Not because of pain, because your neck isn't used to turning again. But when you close your eyes, you see them, the eyes in the square. Not cruel, not kind, just empty. And you realize nothing is more terrifying than a neutral crowd when someone is shamed. You think, better to be mocked than branded forever. Because after the silence comes the sound of iron heating for a sin that never fades. You used to think pain was just pain. Simple. A punch, a slap, a cut. Hurt, then done. But when you see the torturer lift a red-hot iron from the forge, twirling it like a blacksmith with a nail at day's end, you understand. Some pain isn't in the flesh, it's in how people look at it. Afterward, the brand, a single letter, simple enough to rename your life. It might be T for thief, A for adulterer, or F for forger. You don't know which letter you'll earn. You just know it's a one-way ticket to the edge of the world. They drag you to the courtyard, where a coal fire has burned since dawn. The air smells of damp charcoal and singed hair from the last branding, lingering as if even the wind refuses to carry it away. You glance at the crowd. Fewer than at the pillory, but their eyes are just as numerous. They're not loud anymore. They just watch, curious, relieved, thinking, not me today. You kneel, not out of repentance, but because your legs are numb from 3 nights on a frozen floor. One soldier holds your head, another grips your shoulder. The brander waves the glowing iron in a theatrical arc, like an artist before a performance. You don't see the letter, just the blinding red and a faint hiss mixing with your hammering pulse. The iron touches your skin. The pain isn't sharp like a knife. It's thick, heavy, rushing in like choking smoke. You don't scream, not from courage, but because your breath is stolen. The smell of your own burning flesh hits your nose, mixed with a metallic tang, part blood, part nameless shame. You hear the sizzle, cruel, not loud, but relentless, as if the letter isn't just seared into your skin but into the air around you. When they pull the iron away, it feels like your flesh clings to it, but no, just a wisp of cooked skin falls to the ground, curling smoke. They drop you onto the stone. You lie there, not moving, not crying, just breathing. Each inhale reminds you you're alive. And from now on, you'll live with a label that can't be peeled off. The pain will fade, you know. The skin will scar, you know, but the stares won't. They follow you from the tavern to the river, from market to church. No one says anything, no one points, but you see the question in their eyes. What did they do to deserve that letter? And that question is the second brand. You crawl to the shade, leaning against a wall. The cold stone soothes through your torn shirt, kinder than the iron. You close your eyes, not to rest, to stop seeing their gazes. A child approaches, wide-eyed. He doesn't know what the letter means, just that it's strange. He points. You force a smile, dry as forgotten bread. You want to say, "This letter isn't for reading, kid," but you don't. He doesn't need your shame in his eyes. You turn away. That's when it hurts most, when your neck stings, your mouth dries, and your heart empties like a shattered jug. That night, you don't sleep. Not because of pain, you've had enough of that. Because the smell of burnt skin lingers, tainting even your dreams. You close your eyes, then open them, half expecting to hear that sizzle again. The wind slips through the door. You don't feel cold. Cold is for those whose dignity hasn't been scorched. For you, there's only numbness, like a half-burnt log no one bothers to salvage. You thought the brand was a one-time thing. Then you realize it's the first of countless times. Every glance, every whisper, every time you see your reflection in the water and wonder, who was I before? You want to forget, your skin won't, and neither will they. You stand, limping forward. Your feet carry you somewhere, anywhere, as long as it's away from here, but you know you can't outrun it. The shame isn't in the square, it's on your skin, and then, as your steps falter at the village's edge, where stones grow jagged, you see a path leading down. A dark stone cellar where the wind stops blowing and light doesn't bother to follow, because down there life isn't branded, it's hung upside down. You don't know how you got here. You just remember your feet moving, as if an invisible thread tugged from your shin to the earth's core. Maybe it's the wind. The wind always knows the way to the coldest places where light can't settle and memories are hung upside down. The stone door groans open. Maybe it's the rusted hinges, maybe it's you. The first step squeaks under your bare soles. The second doesn't because your feet are already numb. Each step down brushes your skin with damp air, wet, thick, smelling of rust, as if someone mixed rain, blood, and time in a bucket. You breathe slowly, but each inhale is a regret. The air carries mold, moss, and something that used to be human, now just an extension of the stone walls. You touch the wall for balance. It's cold, a piercing cold that stabs your mind. You pull back, then press again, as if the outer chill is kinder than the emptiness inside. There are no swords or knives down here. No need. No one cuts you. They just wait. Wait for pain to become your friend, for loneliness to hum like background music to your heartbeat. You hear dripping water, not flowing, dripping. One drop, another, another. Enough to erase time, but not enough to drive you mad, though sometimes you wish it would. Chains dangle from the ceiling, clinking softly when a draft sneaks through a high vent. The sound, clink, 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 isn't loud, but it's steady, like someone tapping rhythm for a choir of shadows with no voices left. You step deeper and see others. They don't look at you. They stare at the space between their knees. Some lack the strength to lift their heads, others lack the will, as if the last thing they want is to see a newcomer, another soul in a place already crowded with breaths. You see a man hung upside down. Rope binds his ankles, his hair brushing the floor, dripping old sweat. His eyes are open, but see nothing. You're not sure he's alive. You're sure he hasn't been allowed to die. You see a girl, hands tied behind her, kneeling by a shallow puddle. Her mouth is silent, but her eyes scream, muffled, suffocated, useless, like a cry wrapped in a wet blanket. You wonder if you're them, or worse, a newer version, with less blood and more fear. No one tortures you. They don't need to. You do it for them. You sit in the dark, hearing boots crunch on the stone steps. Each footfall echoes thrice. You think they're coming, then they're not. Just the echo of hope betraying itself. You mutter something, a prayer, a curse. It doesn't matter. The sound is lost, like your throat is a broken instrument in a silent orchestra. You try closing your eyes, but each time you see yourself hung upside down, not your body, but your soul. Everything flips. Stone above, darkness below, memories clawing in no order. And you realize pain doesn't start with lashes. It starts when no one asks your name anymore. At some point, you hear laughter. Hoarse, broken, like the laugher's throat is tired of itself. Maybe someone's recalling an old story. Maybe it's the last nerve snapping, you don't know. But you smile, not from joy, because there's nothing else to do. You start nodding to the rats. They're the only ones still curious about you. When one climbs your thigh, you don't shoo it. It's kinder than human eyes. You thought torture was blood, and screams it's not. It's the silence between dripping water. It's forgetting how long you've been here. It's hearing your heartbeat, not from emotion, but because it's the only sound proving you haven't melted into the stone. Then one day, you hear clear footsteps. No echo, no tricks. You open your eyes. There's light, faint, golden, flickering. You know it's time to be dragged out, not to be freed, to be stretched, because sometimes all they want from you isn't truth. It's the slow tear of your tendons. You hear the faint squeak of gears in the dark, not because they're rusty, but because the one turning them wants you to hear. Each dry click lands like a knock at the door of truth. Whether you have it or not, you'll confess something. You're bound with rope, not thick, not soft, and definitely not concerned with your comfort. Your wrists went numb hours ago, tied tightly to the ends of a wooden rack, a device called the rack, as if it's furniture, not a machine for twisting bodies. The wood is cold, hard, indifferent to who you are. It just waits for the soldier to crank the handle, and you, a mere creature of bone and flesh, will stretch like dough kneaded too far. You don't know how much longer you've grown. But you feel the tendons in your shoulders pull, as if your joints are daring each other to break first. You don't know how much truth you have left, only that your tongue starts betraying you before your mind can say no. Each turn of the crank stretches you into another answer. Some cry. Some clench their teeth. Others, like you, try counting the vertebrae that might pop before your name becomes the honest confessor. No one taught you how to endure. There's no training for surviving between two planks, just bones and the silent crackle when they start to give. The soldier doesn't always ask questions. He just stands there, hand lightly on the crank like he's playing a fairground game. But the prize here is a scream, sometimes a name, sometimes a confession you didn't know you could invent. You remember trying to stay silent, breathing evenly, sweat rolling from your temple to your cheek. Then something snaps in your back. Not loud, but enough to tell you, truth doesn't need to be right, just timely. They ask if you know any traitors. You don't. But the pain makes you creative. A name surfaces, a vague face. You're not sure they exist. But when you say it, the gears slow. Part of your body gets a brief reprieve. And so truth is woven from torn ligaments, tears, and imagined memories. You're not the first to lie from pain, just the latest to be stretched long enough for a story. Sometimes you hear others being tortured nearby. Hoarse moans, the faint creak of wood, and prayers, not for release, but for a break that ends it all. They say torture seeks the truth. You know better. Truth here is a traded good, exchanged to avoid hearing your own joints snap like dry twigs. You recall a man named Thomas. They said he was a soldier. Strong, tall, thick-boned, but the rack doesn't discriminate. It's more patient than anyone, and patience, you've learned, is the one thing you can't master in agony. Thomas screamed until he couldn't. When he spoke, his voice sounded like someone telling a fairy tale through a throat stretched 3 inches too long. The soldier grinned as if he'd won a chess match, but no pawn pays for a game with their shoulder tendons. You wonder, does anyone survive the rack and still believe in justice? Or do they just survive and avoid truth for the rest of their days? You don't need to answer. Questions don't hurt. But your body does, still lengthening with each turn. And somewhere in your mind, a voice whispers, "Speak, and end it." End? Number, once you speak, they want more. Another name, a motive, a plot. You have nothing, but they have a crank, and you have joints. You gasp. Air stabs your chest like needles. Your spine hums like a mistuned string. You can't recall your name, but you remember the one you invented to save yourself. The world blurs. Not from blood, but from realizing nothing in this room is real, except the pain. When you faint, or pretend to, the gears stop, briefly, just long enough to hear the wind through the cell's cracks and the ropes, slackening like a flimsy promise. You don't die, not yet. You're just stretched a little, like old cloth ironed flat by someone else's hands. A few days until your shoulders bruise purple, and they drag you out again. But for now, you'll lie, not sleep. Lieutenant, and hope your dreams don't carry the sound of turning gears. And then you're pulled to the next part, where arms don't need to stretch to know pain. You're still there, in the stone's embrace, where light isn't a luxury but a vague idea. Night and day blur, both thick with darkness. One day, or night, you're not sure, the heavy wooden door swings open. Torchlight spills in like a scornful glance from above, catching your gaunt shadow slumped against the wall, hands bound, legs curled to hoard what little warmth remains. They're not here to check on you. You're yanked to your feet. Your arms scream, blood barely reaching your fingers after hours of tight ropes. Each step is a small rebellion of creaking joints, but you move or are dragged, because you've learned one thing: resistance is pointless, and it costs energy. The next room has no rack, no hammers, no wheels. Just a high ceiling, iron hooks and rope. You realize this isn't a place to sit. They bind your wrists behind your back, tight enough to feel personal. Then you're hoisted up, not by a belt, not by your shoulders, but by your wrists alone. The first sensation is shock, a full-body disorientation, as if your frame can't grasp what's happening. Then your arms are wrenched backward, your shoulders grinding. Your whole weight hangs on two joints meant for embracing, not survival. Next comes breathing, or rather its absence. Your stomach collapses, your chest compresses, and breathing, once instinct, becomes a desperate, tiny war. You breathe with your throat, then with your will, and then, as if that weren't enough, they release the rope. You drop. A spark of hope flares, crushed like a spring. Maybe they'll spare me. Number. You fall a short distance, then jerk back up. A click sounds somewhere in your bones, like a lock turned wrong. Your shoulder, maybe, has left its socket. A scream might escape, or not. Maybe it's a gasp or silence, not from endurance, but because pain has stolen your air. That's when they ask, not "Are you okay?" but "Who's your accomplice?" in a tone as flat as reading a shopping list. You try shaking your head, but it spins like a wheel, the world drowning in haze. They drop you again, another jolt, a stab through your shoulder, radiating to your gut, as if every nerve is being stretched taut. They ask again, no answer, just a dry cough and the taste of blood in your throat. They hoist you up once more. The game repeats. Each drop strips a piece of control, not just of your body, but of you. At one point, you half think of an innocent name, just to have something to say. Then you swallow it, afraid, not of punishment, but of believing a lie might save you. The room's air is heavy as stone. The guards stand still, no smirks, no grimaces. They're used to this. To you, it's tragedy. To them, it's Tuesday. You don't know how long it's been. Minutes, hours, no clocks. Just the rhythm of drops and yanks. Eventually, you stop feeling your shoulders. Pain turns to numbness, but breathing doesn't return. When you start to fade, someone slaps your cheek, just enough to pull you back. Not because they care if you die, because you haven't confessed. Finally, you speak. A name, a place, a story. Not true, but enough to give the rope holders a sense of control. You're lowered to the cold floor. Your shoulders aren't where they should be. Your arms won't move. You think of your parents. If they're alive, they wouldn't recognize you now, but you survived. Enough to wonder where they'll take you next. A gallows, a stake, or back to the cell. Survival here isn't victory, it's a postponement. You're still breathing, barely. Your dislocated shoulder reminds you, they don't want truth. They want a confession, whatever the cost. Your eyes flutter, not from sleep, but because your body can't keep them open. And in your wheezing breath, you hear the wooden door creak open. Not the last time. Just another. The door shuts behind you, leaving the room so still you hear your bones shift. Your left shoulder isn't a joint anymore, just a loose reminder that you once raised your arm. Your right? Still there, but it crackles with every breath. They don't ask questions anymore. You confessed. That's enough. No one cares if it was true. They needed words, and you gave them some. In the cell's darkness, amid the howling wind through stone cracks and dripping ceiling, you wonder, how will you die? Not if that question expired the day they bound your wrists. Maybe a rope, maybe fire, maybe something you've never heard of but will feel on your skin. But in your exhaustion, your mind drifts to another scene, a different death, a noble one. You picture, or imagine, a square on the city's far side. No pens, no gallows, just a polished stone platform with a canopy. Guards stand in neat rows, and a herald reads the condemned's name in a steady, unshaken voice. There they don't bind you with coarse rope. They dress you in silk. They don't drag you through the streets, but let you walk to the beat of urgent drums. A ceremony for someone leaving the world by axe, the state's sharpest tool, reserved for heads deemed worthy. Beheading, a noble death. For those born a few classes above you, with the right to err, to betray, to fail in their plots. And in the end, the right to a clean death, not burned, stretched, or snapped like commoners. Sounds elegant, doesn't it? But people forget, not every axe is sharp, not every executioner is skilled, and not everyone is lucky enough to die in one swing. A queen, you vaguely recall her name, stood there on that stone. Slender neck, hair neatly trimmed, hands clasped in prayer. They said she died beautifully, bravely. They didn't mention it took 3 strikes. First, the axe glanced off her collarbone. She didn't scream, but blood sprayed in a quiet arc. Second, the blade bit her spine, a dull thunk like snapping a stick. The wind blew hard and the crowd shivered, not from pity, but because their cloaks fluttered. Third, her head fell, rolling a few turns before resting in a wicker basket. Her eyes stayed open as if she couldn't believe nobility didn't shield her neck from a blunt axe. You think of this, curled against the icy cell wall where cold seeps into every vertebra. You're no noble, no one will offer you an axe, and if they did, it wouldn't be the polished kind. You won't hear drums. You'll hear jeers, not yours, the crowd's. They come to watch, not to mourn, and laugh. No canopy for you. Sun will burn your eyes. Wind will fling dust in your mouth. And if you're beheaded, unlikely, the axe might not sever your neck in one go. You don't get to demand a second swing. That's luxury. If you were in the crowd, you'd probably go home and say, "She died fast." As if death were a performance. And you, an audience member, clapping while yawning. Your throat is dry. You cough softly, just to check your breathing. You're not there yet, not on that stone. But your mind, the part not yet stretched by interrogations, races there, wondering, is a clean cut worth dreaming for? You chuckle, a soundless twitch in your battered chest, because you know, in your time, hope isn't about living, but dying quickly. High above, a church bell tolls. Maybe for prayer, maybe for the next execution, you don't know, but each chime reminds you, death isn't fair, but it doesn't discriminate. Wait long enough, it'll find you. You close your eyes, picturing that falling head, not for pleasure, but because your brain needs something to face the thought. I might be next. You're not ready, but you don't get to choose the hour. You dream again, not of wings, angels, or joyful bells, just a slow, floating dream, thick with choking. You stand on a creaking wooden platform, worn as if it's seen 100 deaths and still hungers for more. A thick rope, smelling of mold and old blood, dangles in the air, waiting for you. No pounding drums, no flags in the breeze. Just the heavy thud of your steps on the groaning wood, the sound of someone dragging themselves to life's final page. You're that someone, hands bound behind you, flanked by 2 executioners, bored from their 3rd hanging of the day. The sky is grey, too lazy to look down. No one bothers cleaning your neck before the noose. Why care if it's dirty when it's about to stretch a few vertebrae longer? You stand, legs trembling, not from fear, but hunger. 2 days without food, and now you're performing your last act for a crowd that didn't pay but is eager to watch. They press against the barriers below like it's a fair. An old woman sells roasted apples, a child giggles, a young man bets on how many times you'll twitch before you stop. So romantic in a very medieval way. The executioner checks the knot, probably botched a few before, so he's cautious now. The rope isn't smooth and the noose looks a tad small for your neck, but who cares? As long as the platform drops, you won't be standing there anymore. There are 2 ways to die by hanging. The professional way for erring nobles, a sharp drop that snaps your neck like a dry twig, clean and final. Then there's your way. A weak fall, too short, too soft, leaving you to strangle, twitch and foam at the mouth. They call it dancing the Tyburn jig, a desperate improvised waltz, your feet kicking for life with nowhere to go. The platform clunks, you fall. Not fast like in dreams, but a slow stumble, like tripping in real life. The rope grips your neck, not enough to kill, just enough to choke. Your lungs revolt first. They thrash, pounding your chest for air. Your heart races, not to live, but to understand why you're here. Your bound hands jerk, your legs flail, but no one steps forward. They watch. Some wince, others smirk. Your death is their morning appetizer. You don't know how long you struggle. Each twitch tightens the rope. Air stops coming, but your eyes stay open, fading, blurring. The crowd's cheers sound like echoes from a well. Time stretches like the rope, unyielding, unforgiving. A breeze brushes through your torn shirt, across your purpling neck. It's not cool or soothing, it's just cold, and realer than ever. A fly lands on your cheek, waiting for you to still, so it can start its work. You can't swat it, you can't turn away. You just sway, like a broken lantern in an old kitchen. Below, the apple seller's calls fade. The crowd grows bored, they've seen enough. The child tugs her mother away. A guard yawns. Life moves on as it does, whether you're dead or not quite. Then, light. Not heaven's light, the light in your eyes receding like a theatre lamp, dimming at the end of a show. A performance with no lines, no happy ending, and an audience that never runs out. You can imagine the crowd dispersing like after a festival. Kids grab fallen crumbs, the old woman packs her apples, and the executioner shrugs off, untying the rope for next time. You, left dangling like an outdated shadow no one bothers to erase. Your body swings, a semicolon between sentences of justice, not an end, just a pause. Because there's always another trial. And if you're still awake, still feeling the cold hand of the wind brushing your neck, stay with us for what's next. Where sometimes just staying silent is enough to make you guilty. You thought silence would save you, that if you didn't argue, didn't scream, didn't thrash, someone might take pity and unlock your chains. But here, silence isn't patience. It's an insult, a sin, a defiance of the court's authority. And in this century, that's worse than theft, adultery, or blasphemy. They lead you to a courtyard where the ground is slick and hard from old blood. Stones arrive on a wooden cart, round, grey, heavy, not sharp. They don't need to be. The goal isn't to cut, but to crush. To press your chest, your breath, your trembling pride into the dirt. You're tied down, your back against the cold stone. A ragged cloth is stuffed in your mouth to keep you from biting your tongue or to spare the crowd your screams. Your arms are spread, pinned between wooden beams. The first sensation is cold. So cold, then comes the weight, and then, heavier, a stone settles on your stomach. You brace. Another on your chest. It's like someone's trying to fuse you with the earth, to imprint you there forever. No one asks for last words. They only want to hear, "I confess." A third stone. Your shoulders shake. Not from pain, but because you know more are coming. The jailer clicks his tongue, signaling the laborers to keep piling. Each stone is a wordless question. Ready to admit it yet? Each added weight flattens another piece of your dignity, like a sponge under a muddy boot. Your lungs shrink. Air becomes a luxury. You try to breathe, but only get half a gasp. Then a quarter, then just reflex, like a fish on a board. Your eyes blur, not from tears, but because your heartbeat stumbles. The world sways, though you're still. Someone suggests confessing, casually, like inviting you for a drink. You can't answer. The cloth is wet with drool. But your eyes, the only part still yours, don't say what they want. Maybe you still think justice is noble, or maybe you just won't lose. Here, both are mistakes. You hear stones rolling on the cart, a monotonous, repeating sound. Another stone, bigger. They shift it to your left, where your heart struggles to keep time. You don't scream, don't writhe, don't beg. That's your biggest error. You're making them feel insulted. The torturer wipes his brow like he's gardening. He squats, studies you and mutters, "Stubborn. Probably a heretic. You might not even know your crime, just that you didn't kneel, didn't confess, didn't call for a priest, didn't lie." Night falls. Wind weaves through the stones, carrying the damp of old rain. Most spectators are gone. Hangings are fun, but crushing is dull. Only a few guards remain, and the growing weight on your chest. Your head lolls, your ear catching your heart's erratic thump, fading like a muffled drum. No light at the tunnel's end, no angels, no forgiveness, just suffocation, lingering, grinding. If death comes, it's not a finale, just a quiet surrender. You don't know if you're still breathing, but you hear footsteps approaching with another stone. And if you're still awake, still feeling 1,000 stones on your chest, join us for what's next. You wake to the smell of smoke, not cozy hearth smoke or kindling. This smoke is sharp, salty, human. You know it from the first breath, the scent of burning hair, skin, and faith reduced to ash. In your time, this smell means one of two things. You're in the crowd watching an execution, or you're the main event. You glance at your hands. Bound tight. Rope cuts your wrists, calluses bleeding. Your feet are tied too, not to stop you from running, since the massive stake at your back ensures you're going nowhere, but to keep you positioned like a well-behaved candle. They call it purification. Sounds lovely, like cleansing your soul with a touch of incense. But there's no incense, no calm, just dry straw, wet wood, and a few buckets of oil to make the flames catch faster. You've built campfires before, but never one with a priest chanting over it. The crowd gathers, their faces are ceremonial, like they're at church, but brought snacks. A child is hoisted onto her father's shoulders for a better view of you. You with tangled hair, cracked lips, and a throat dry as sackcloth. You had a name, a family, memories. Now you're just the heretic. A woman by another stake weeps, softly, as if she doesn't dare disrupt the ritual with her feelings. Maybe she was your friend, maybe not. Here, all bonds burn with the wood. A hiss sounds as the executioner lights the straw at your feet. It doesn't flare, it creeps, giving you time to ponder every choice that led you here. Heat pricks your soles, then your calves, a sting like needles, then searing. You scream, not from pain, from surprise. Your body isn't ready to be fuel. Your cry is swallowed by steady chants. The priest doesn't pause. He reads on as if you're a ritual to complete, not a person roasting alive. The flames reach your knees. Your flesh burns. You know because you smell yourself, a mix of overcooked meat, fear, and tears. Your skin blisters, popping like corn, but no one's eating, just watching. Your eyes search for another's, anyone's, but they all look through you, as if you're already ash, though your heart still pounds. You try breathing. Mistake. Fire doesn't just burn skin, it burns air. Each inhale brings smoke, heat, and coughing that tears your lungs. You hiccup. No strength to scream. Just guttural sounds mixed with the sizzle of fat dripping into the flames. A living roast no one will taste. You might have thought burning was the worst pain. It's not. The worst is knowing you won't hear "I forgive you." Forgiveness is for the living. And you, with smoke rising from your throat, were deemed dead long ago. Your last words dissolve in the fire. No one hears. Not even you. Maybe they were beautiful or sad, but the smoke carries them away before they leave your lips. The world fades, your eyes squint, not from light, but from eyelids shrinking in the heat. It's like someone's peeling you layer by layer, slowly, so you miss no detail. The crowd murmurs, eats bread, and drifts away like after a well-staged play. When your heart stops, no one knows if it's from burns, suffocation, or despair. Maybe all three. Someone douses the ashes with water, not out of respect, but to clear space for the next. You're not buried. No grave, no name, just a pinch of ash carried off by the wind, whispering words no one ever caught. And if you're still with us, still tasting the salt in the smoke, the burn on your tongue, stay for the next part, where death isn't just painful, but scored by trumpets and breaking bones. You're still alive. Not the poetic kind of alive from scriptures, but the kind where you feel every splintered bone no longer fitting together. Your right arm was just struck. Not fully broken, cracked. A sound you can't place, wood snapping or your skeleton giving way. No one bothers to clarify. The executioner continues with eerie patience. He's not rushed. No one is. Time here isn't measured by clocks, but by bones. You're strapped to a wooden wheel, big as your childhood dreams. Once it hauled grain or manure. Now it cradles a human body, yours, quite literally. You're bent over its curve, arms and legs splayed like a doomed star, waiting for each joint to meet the iron hammer. It's crude, but precise. The blows don't land randomly. They aim for the middle of the joint to break cleanly, with minimal torn skin. That way, you stay alive for the next hit. The hammer falls again, left thigh. This sound is heavier. You can't scream anymore, not from bravery, but because your throat is raw. Screaming at the first blow was a tactical error. Now you just pant, breaths stuttering like a torn flute. A whoosh fills your ears, maybe tinnitus, maybe your mind unraveling. Each strike isn't just pain, it's an electric jolt surging from your chest to your eyes, making your lids twitch, tears spilling without permission. Above, children whistle, thinking this is fun. An old man plays a horn in the distance, maybe farewelling you, maybe practicing a folk tune. Your death has a soundtrack. After each broken limb, the executioner spins the wheel, not for show, but to rush blood to your head, keeping you conscious. They need you awake, feeling every piece of yourself come undone. They say if you survive the first 6 breaks, you grow indifferent. Not from courage, but because your brain unplugs sensation, like a toothache so bad you forget hunger. But you're no philosopher. The hammer falls a 4th time, left shoulder. Your collarbone twists, not snapping but spiraling. Breathing stops. Each attempt to inhale stabs your back. Your spine is soaked. Blood or sweat, it doesn't matter. Everything blends. The sun dips, gilding the wheel like honey on a battlefield stretcher. You're today's dessert. The executioner pauses, probably for a drink. He steps back, sets the hammer down, wipes his brow. You lie there, half-cooked, not yet done. A breeze grazes your face, but it's cold, not winter's cold, but the chill of a body leaking life. When he returns, you wonder, how many joints left? Right arm's untouched, right knee too. Toes might be a bonus round. But what's the prize in a life like this? You hear your breath, not from your throat, but deep in your chest. A wheeze, like a punctured bellows. You're not sure if it's life or surrender. The wheel is streaked with blood, not drenched, but traced, like ink on parchment. A map of pain, bordered by your body's limits. Finally, they hoist you up. The wheel is raised upright. You're bound to it, a warning flag. This is what happens if you speak, believe, live differently. No applause, no prayers, just gazes. Then they turn away like you're a church mural, Christ with outstretched arms but no one reaching back. Night falls. You see nothing, not because you're dead, but because your swollen eyelids won't open. You're still breathing, but no one asks why. Because another punishment awaits where you're not struck, but simmered. Ever heard water boil? Not the cozy bubble of your mother's soup, but a hiss, bubbles bursting in the stifled silence of a square. It's not loud, just steady, patient. As if the cauldron knows there's no rush, you, the one being cooked, aren't going anywhere. Before your body meets the scalding liquid, before your skin blisters, it starts with a smell, metal, ash, and something like sizzling fat. You don't realize it's you, not at first, but there's no oven nearby, no pork, forgotten on coals, just you and the cauldron. It's huge, big enough to sit in with room to spare. Maybe even turn if your hands weren't bound and your body weren't shaking. Inside, a thick liquid simmers, oil, maybe salted water, sometimes molten lead. They don't always say, not to keep secrets, but because no one cares what cooks you. The point is, you cook. Not everyone gets this honor. It's for special crimes, murder, treason, or offending the wrong church official. You, perhaps for staying silent at the wrong moment, made the list. A short list, but enough to keep the fire roaring. Can you imagine the first touch of that water? It's not pain, not instantly, it's shock. Your entire skin screams at once. Your nerves, built only to feel, become a blaring orchestra. No rests, no pauses. They say the worst is when your skin blisters, then bursts like popcorn. Tiny bubbles fizz from your epidermis, soft pops like rain on tiles. But the tiles are you. Each scald, each shrinking muscle makes you open your mouth to scream, only to inhale steam. That steam doesn't give life. It burns. It claws your airways like invisible fingers scraping outward. Each breath is a curse, yet you're still alive. Time stretches, not because clocks slow, but because you feel every second. Every inch of skin-meeting heat is a farewell to yourself. Your legs twitch, hands claw at nothing, chest heaves reflexively. A child in the crowd points and cheers when you arch, then slump. A good sign, the executioner says. Proof the temperature's just right. Not hot enough to kill instantly. Not cool enough to bore the audience. You hear whispers behind you. An old woman says, "Not cooked yet." Still moving. A man replies, "Give it 10 minutes for the quiet part." You realize you're the meal, not just for cruelty, but for curiosity. You might not remember your name now, just the sensation of flesh melting, bones shrinking. Your eyes see only blurred light, tears and steam. But you hear the fire, your bones creaking under heat, yourself. When you think you're gone, your heart still beats. Slower, quieter, but there. They say those boiled don't scream to the end. They go silent, not from less pain, but from no strength. Scorched vocal cords, stiffened tongue, no sound escapes, though inside, terror still roars. You learn. Not everyone dies quickly. Death can be a privilege. You're forced to linger, watching yourself dissolve. A priest steps forward, blessing you, though you never prayed, though you don't believe fire cleans anything but skin. He chants, telling the crowd, "We're merciful." You just want to breathe, even if it's your last. If you're still here, tasting the salt in the smoke, the burn on your tongue, stay for the next part. Because if you think this is pain's limit, think again. Betrayal, as you'll soon see, demands a systematic response. You're no longer allowed to dream. Not because someone forbids it, but because mud has caked too deep in your toes and the biting wind has pierced every layer of forgetfulness you once built. You don't dream because dreams are for those with hope. And you've betrayed the realm. No, you didn't topple a kingdom, didn't scale walls or sell secrets. All you did was fail to bow at the right moment. A tongue too sharp, a stare too long, and suddenly you're a traitor. They drag you between two rows of soldiers, their soggy boots squelching. No one looks at you, not because they don't see, but because they've seen too many. Just another traitor. You're not led to a scaffold. Betrayal doesn't get a quick end. You're granted a special right, a tragedy with live music. It starts with dragging, literally you, by ropes, over gravel and dried horse dung. Your shirt tears fast, and your skin mimics frayed cloth, scraped raw. The burning isn't from fire, but from blood, dust, and grit embedding in your flesh. The guards' shouts are a chorus, monotonous, emotionless. Children chase behind, cheering like it's a parade. They haven't betrayed yet, so they're still innocent. At the sight, you're propped up, not by hands, but by ropes, yanking your spine straight, like a puppet. Wind stings your raw patches, teasing one last time. Then, hanging, not to kill. The goal is never speed. The rope lifts you, your neck stretches, but the platform stays close, inches below. You thrash, dancing a slow waltz for a jaded crowd. They watch, chew cold meat, and count your spasms like steps in a failed ballet. The platform drops, not to end you, but to scare. You fall, then are yanked back, a shoulder shake from death, then released to reconsider. This repeats several times, until the real show begins, disembowelment, not with a surgeon's knife, but a small axe, like a butcher prepping pork. Your stomach is sliced in a cross, and the executioner's hand reaches in, pulling out loops of intestine, gently, patiently, not too fast, lest the crowd miss it. You're alive, seeing it all. Your eyes bulge from shock and pain, blood trickling from your mouth, maybe your throat, maybe your stomach. You don't cry out. Your body quakes like a snapped guitar string mid-song. Then your heart is tugged free. A a slow, faltering beat. Not for study, but to be raised before the crowd like a trophy. Some clap. Others close their eyes, not from horror, but boredom. Next, the gift sharing. Quartering, though not with horses. They're too costly. An axe does the job. Your body, in 4 parts, is loaded onto carts sent to the realm's corners. Each piece a warning, like a 4-line poem without rhyme. Don't, ever, dare, again. Your head, naturally, is nailed to the city gate. Not for memory, but for the crows to perch. The smell of old flesh, rusted metal, sun-baked skull. They blend in the air, a morning greeting from the court to the people. You're no longer human, just a symbol, a bloody caution. You don't need to breathe anymore, but you're still there. And if you're still listening, lingering in that foggy dawn, brace for what's next, where even if you don't die, the end is never the end. You open your eyes, not because you're ready to wake, not because sleep was deep or kind. Something presses your chest like a cold stone, not a torturer's stone, a stone of memory, layered, heavy, silent. You're not in a cell, not hanging, not burning, not stripped before a crowd awaiting death like a carnival. You're in a room where soft light spills through thin curtains. Distant roosters crow and the chatter of street vendors hums below. But it doesn't ease you. Instead, you feel something else. Harder to name than death. Awareness. You're alive. And that's the scariest part. No one quartered you, poured molten lead on your skin, or shamed you before a jeering mob. Yet something broke. The last piece of you, not flesh, but the belief you belong to a just world, shattered like a skin bubble in boiling oil. You weren't a victim of those punishments, but in your heart there was a moment you cheered, or stayed silent. Silence isn't innocent. You remember that day, the crowd clapping as the executioner tugged a rope on a woman who stole bread. You did nothing. You turned away, pretending to be busy, pretending not to hear her final cry. You told yourself, not my problem. You believed it until the dreams began. Night after night. Wheels, ropes, fire, stones. History replaying, asking, are you truly blameless? You're not sure. You survived, but you're no hero. Just a witness who watched too long until others' wounds took shape in your mind. Your hands are whole, but you know the feel of an arm wrenched backward, dangling from its socket, because you've imagined it too often. Your legs can run, but each night you dream of stepping onto a gallows, a waiting noose beckoning like a fated collar. No one wakes you. You wake yourself, unable to bear it. You walk outside, see a beggar pelted with stones by children. Part of you wants to speak. The rest warns, careful, talk too much, and it's your turn. You look in a mirror, no blood, no burns, no cuts, just shadowed eyes, not from sleeplessness, but from seeing too much. You realize the nightmare isn't in sleep, it's in life, where indifference treats humanity like a paid-off debt. And death, it turns out, is less frightening than living on, learning nothing from others' ends. You sit, as always. No noose, no flames. Just a cold cup of tea and a morning paper with new deaths, new hangings nearby. No one says much. They read, fold it, move on. So do you. You have to live. But now you live differently. Not because you're good, because you've seen enough bad. You breathe softly, as if afraid to stir memories not yet settled. And you ask yourself one last time, am I human enough to stop dreaming of executions? Then the sky brightens. No ending, just this, you're still breathing. And in that breath you carry souls never forgiven. You're still here, not bound, not burned, not hacked into quarters and sent home as a message. You're just lying in a room quiet enough to hear the wind slip through the door's cracks. Your arms aren't stretched, your neck isn't choked, your lungs work silently. And your heart probably does too. History doesn't need to shout. It whispers every night, in dreams you didn't choose. It doesn't blame you. It just shows you scene by scene, bone by bone, stare by stare, and asks, "So what did you see?" You don't need to answer. Just breathe steadily. Let the torturer's footsteps fade like rain on a roof. Let the fire retreat, the ropes slacken, the wheels stop turning. No one will wake you. No one will drag you anywhere. You can lie still, not because you're safe, but because tonight you're spared. Sleep. You survived history. And sometimes that alone is exhausting enough.